Thank you, everyone, for attending this call. And yeah, you are not mistaken. You are on a conference about security, and I'm not going to be talking about security. I'm feeling like I'm the weird one here, like being an imposter, right? And I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about something that is called impostor syndrome. And it's in the IT world and from the perspective of someone that gives talks at conferences. So in order for you to understand that, I need to share with you my story. I need to share what happened on my life so you can understand a little bit what I was feeling in every moment, right? Before the story, there's always people saying, oh, he's writing imposter in a wrong way. It should be with an E. Actually, you can write it with an E, imposter, or imposter with an O. And as I'm from Spain, as you all already probably know with my accent, I prefer to put it in a way that I can write in Spanish, English at the same time. So I'm from Spain. I was originally a Java developer. And I had an opportunity to move to France in 2005. And I didn't speak French at all at that time. So my English was really, really worse, even worse than now, because I only had English high school in Spain in the 90s. So not really proper way to learn English. And I had one sister living in Paris, and she said, well, as you are a computer engineer, my company is looking for new computer engineers. So they agreed for that you can have an interview with them and let's see how it goes. So I prepared the interview with my crappy English, but with the feeling that, well, they're gonna say no because I don't speak French, my English is bad, but I'm spending one weekend in Paris visiting my sister, right? So it's a good plan with your weekend in Paris and then you do an interview, right? So I have the full Monday morning with interviews with them, and with my surprise, they offer me the job. And I was a little bit scared and feeling really anxious all the time because I was with a feeling that I tricked them, that maybe they didn't understand properly with my English and they thought that I was better. So I become more and more stressed before moving there. On the first month there, really, really stressed. I was working late to try to compensate and doing even more efforts. I was feeling out of place. In the situation, I don't speak any French. On the lunchtime, everybody's eating a sandwich, and I'm with them eating a sandwich, and I don't understand anything because they are speaking French, of course. And I was with the feeling that I need to prove that I'm good, and not because I had one sister in the same company, right? So I was feeling like they will realize one day that it wasn't good. So if I have to recap, it's a little bit like feeling anxious all the time, that I need to prove that I belong there, feeling out of place, like all the others are really better than me, and I'm the one that is making my team really, really under the average, that I'm getting my team down, right? And that's the reason I'm working late, and I'm feeling a little bit depressed sometimes because the others are so good. Even the ones that they were in French, they were able to express themselves in proper French. But of course, because in their countries, they also speak French. But I wasn't realizing of that. I was thinking, I'm the fraud, and they're going to show it. They're going to see that they are good, they know a lot, they're amazing, and I'm just the guy who's being lucky all the time. On the lucky place at the lucky moment. And my surprise, they even make me team lead. I even was a head of backend development. And every time that it was someone coming from out of France, not speaking French to the company, they were always my team because they say, well, you know how they did, how you did. So you should be able to be with them. So it was really, really stress for me. I changed to management part to try to help the developers. And for life happened and things like that, and I moved to UK in 2014. And the same things happened again. I was feeling out of place because I didn't know anybody there. I wasn't used to that English. I was so used to the American English of the movies and things like that, or English spoken by French people, that took me some time to understand properly the British English, that some men say that the proper English, right? My accent was too strong, so they couldn't understand me properly, and I was feeling anxious because of that. And again, I started working even late every day to try to compensate and to do a good job, because they offered me a job on my first interview, and I was thinking, oh, again, I'm so lucky. I don't know what happened. I tricked them, and I was feeling, I don't know why they offered me the role, right? After a couple of years, I decided to look for another job in UK, because everybody was telling me that, in UK and in London, it's good to, at least the first years that you are there, try to change every 2 years because you have more opportunities and so on. So I start checking offers, right? And I applied for a company that the offer had a lot of bullet points, and I wasn't fulfilling all. But I thought it's going to be a good experience to start being on interviews, so I will find the right role in the future, right? So I went for the interview, and I remember the two interviewers that they told me, oh, this role of technical project manager, that is someone with strong technical background and strong delivery qualities. We've been trying to fill it for more than 4 months, and we're not getting the right person. So I thought, well, it's going to be an easy interview then, because it's not going to be me, right? They were waiting 4 months. So the interview was not nervous for me, because I was so convinced that it wasn't me, that I wasn't nervous at all. And the next day, the recruiter at the company called me and say, "Oh, Antonio, I'm going to have a chat with interviewers later today, because I didn't have the chance with them. Just I realized on all phone calls, we never talk about salary, so I don't know exactly what are your expectations." So I was a little bit surprised that why is he calling me about the salaries right now? So I did say something ridiculous. So it was, they didn't know my current salary at that time, but they asked for a lot more, because I was expecting that they were going to counter offer less, and then I would be happy, right? It's more or less, when you try to negotiate, you say, if my current salary is X, I'm going to ask for X plus 12,000. So they will offer maybe X plus 5, and I would be happy. So okay, let me discuss with the team, and I'll come back to you. Okay? And probably he's going to come back saying that it's not me, right? So he called and said, Antonio, we really want you to fill that role, and you told us that you're having other interviews this week. So our offer, instead of the X plus 12 that you asked, is going to be X plus 15. So they even offer me £3,000 more every year than the amount that I asked for. And it was really, really big comparing with my salary. Of course, I say yes, because it's more money. And I say, worst case scenario, after 1 month, they realize that I'm not good and I have good money, right? So I accepted, but I was with this kind of fear and anxiety that, did I do the right thing, accepting? So that company was a small company, 40, 50 people. So it was a consultancy, and I was the only technical project manager, agile delivery guy, right? All the others, they were senior platform engineers, senior developers, and they were actually, a lot of them, speakers at conferences. I've never thought about giving a talk at the conference at that time. So I was feeling a little bit intimidated. Like, this time I'm really the one that is lower in the level. They are giving talks at conferences. Come on, they're amazing. And when I was at the beginning, the first month, I was on the bench because they didn't find a client to place me. So that it was also is what they call bench time on consultancies. And it makes me even more nervous because I was thinking, of course, they're not finding a client for you because you're a fraud, and they're going to realize because they're not placing you because you're a fraud, right? And the reality is they were so used to place only senior platform engineers and senior developers that they struggle to place a agile delivery consultant or project manager because they weren't used to. So it wasn't about my qualities. The fact it was from their side. So they decided to organize an internal conference day that the whole company would be one day at without billing to the clients. It's going to be some clients invited, and some people from the company, they're going to give some talks. As I was on the bench, I feel obliged to submit one talk, right? And say, well, I might be able to talk about this. So they say, okay, cool, give the talk. So I gave the talk. Some people say that they like me, and the head of delivery said, now that you have a talk created, you should submit it to conferences. And I say, yeah, right. I'm going to submit to conferences. No one is going to accept this talk. But they did. And actually, that is Vilnius in Lithuania, and it was my first ever talk. It was in Vilnius. And I got accepted there, and I was really, really nervous because I did check the other speakers, and there were some famous speakers that you could see that they were giving talks for years and years. It was a conference. It was big data conference, or no, high cloud strategy conference. And my talk, it was about project management and DevOps. So the weird one. Like on this conference, you see that I'm not talking about security. It was the same. I wasn't talking about high-load strategies or big data, things like that. But they like the talk, and some people like it. I enjoy meeting other speakers and the people. So I submit that talk to other conferences because I've already have the talk, the abstract. I was surprised because it got accepted on a lot of different conferences. So I enjoyed the nice part of being a speaker, meeting other people, other cultures, watching other speakers live and learning from them. And I visit Kiev, Berlin, New York, Riga, Tallinn. And that it was only with one talk that I was feeling confident because it was several times giving that talk. It's like when you're a developer and you feel confident applying same principles, and it's, that's exactly the same. But one senior consultant on the company said, Antonio, you should probably prepare a little bit more and create more talks. Okay, maybe I can do that. So I decided to learn more. So I used Pluralsight. There is a course from Scott Hanselman about public speaking and giving tech talks. And it was amazing. I enjoyed it. And I checked Scott Hanselman's talk on YouTube and things like that. He's really amazing. So if you have the opportunity of watching live, do it, because he is really, really, really good. And discussing with a senior consultant that is also a seasoned speaker, he told me, when I create a new talks, I don't create the whole slides. I just create the idea of the talk, the title and the abstract, and then I submit it to conferences. And if it's accepted, then I create the whole talk. If not, then I submit other ideas and say, that's the agile thinking, right? The MVP or the minimum marketable product. Okay, I'll do the same. Crazy me. So I said, I might try to do that. And I submit an idea what to talk about technical depth, and it got accepted. So I got an email that started like that. That's, Antonio, your talk was rated among the best by our mobile web track program committee. So I was really, really stressed because the talk wasn't created. So I tricked them again. And I was feeling again like a fraud, and they are going to realize, because it's a big conference in Greece, that there are 400 or 500 people there. Okay, Antonio, relax. Okay, let's see the other speakers, right? Let's see one of the keynotes. Who is one of the keynote speakers? Oh, Scott Hanselman, the guy of the Pluralsight course, the guy that I just told you that is really amazing. He was one of the keynotes. I freaked out. I was completely stressed to the fact that I cannot be on the same conference that he's been the keynote, because I'm not that good. So I was really stressed. It took me a lot of nights to create a talk. Even the day before, I was really stressed. The conference, it was a 2 days conference. My talk was on the second day before the closing keynote by Linda Lucas. So I was able on the first day to see all the amazing speakers giving talks, and I was getting more and more nervous, more and more anxious, and I was really stressed. But someone managed to help me get the fact and not the feelings. So with one French speaker, because at that time I was already speaking French fluently, because I was already in UK, told me one fact. Instead of focus on how I was feeling about impostor, or I was feeling really stressed because I was feeling that I wasn't good, he said, there is a fact that is you submitted your talk like I did, and the program committee think it will be great. So don't worry, it will be great. So that was the first time that I realized about checking the facts and not the feelings can be a good thing to reduce anxiety and to reduce that feeling. And it was really important that even someone that I met that day, helped me doing that. Even though all the time during the conferences and all the time that I'm at the conference, I'm always feeling like I'm the fraud. So all of that is the feeling about the being impostor, is what is called impostor syndrome. So have you ever compared yourself with other team members and felt like a fraud? If yes, because I had, you might have impostor syndrome at that time. Or have you ever felt unworthy of your job promotion? Or when you get a new job offer that they say, I don't know how I'm getting that amount of money, or things like that. Or doubted about your successes, or when you have a positive feedback at your work. Or it's the same when you are a conference speaker, when you have a good talk and you have positive feedback and you doubt that. Do you know someone who could have answered yes to any of those questions? Because those are traits of impostor syndrome. Impostor syndrome is a psychological pattern when you doubt about your accomplishment and you think that you are going to be exposed as a fraud. So you have that fear that people are going to realize that you're tricking them, that you are actually sabotaging yourself. That's impostor syndrome. Sounds familiar a little bit of the questions? Hopefully, yes. And don't worry, you are not alone. If you say yes, you are not alone at all. There are some studies that at least 70% of individuals experience impostor syndrome at least once in their life. And it can be more than once, I can tell you. There are some moments that can trigger that more often. When you change the environment. So when you move to a new city, when you go to a new university to do a postgrad, or you change your career and you go to a different university, when you move to a different company, and of course, when you move to a different country, you can feel like that. And also, it triggers quite often, sorry, if you are part of underrepresented gender or ethnicity, whether you are working, because you might be feeling that you are there only to fill the quota and not because you are an amazing people at your job. The reality is you are there because you deserve it and you are amazing at your job, not for a quota. Keep that in mind. Some traits of impostor syndrome. So the feeling of being afraid or feel shame to ask for help. It happened to me quite often. And it happened also to conference speakers when asking for help to refine a talk, or when you have an unfinished personal project and it's unfinished because it's not perfect. So you can have that equal for a talk, but you don't have to finish the talk because you don't feel it's perfect, right? Or you can't start a project because you don't know how to start and you start procrastinating. So it's the same for a conference speaker. You don't start a new talk because you don't know how to start. You don't know how to create the story, how to create the flow of the words during the talk. So you procrastinate. Or you have the feeling that other people are talented and you are just lucky. You are the lucky, in my case, you are the lucky guy at the lucky moment and the right time. You know, it's a, wow, but they were looking for someone, and at that moment I was also looking, and just because I was lucky. Sometimes you look for external validation. So it can be on your day-to-day job, like trying to get external validation from other colleagues, from other teams, from your line manager. When you're a conference speaker, you're trying to see if all the feedback that you're getting from the conference is positive and things like that. But regard that you are looking for external validation, you disregard any positive, and you're only looking for the negative because you are convinced that it wasn't great. You're convinced that it wasn't perfect, your project, your job, or your talk. So they are going to realize where it could be better. And that's the reason you're looking for all that negative feedback. Some expressions that people with imposter syndrome can say. So, and these ones, like, I have heard that more than once. Typical that I have been coding for more than 10, 20 years. My code is good, no need to review it. There is a chance that that person is having imposter syndrome and it's afraid that if someone is going to review the code, they will realize that that person is a fraud. What you want to open source this, but what if they find bugs? That's imposter syndrome as well. The key thing is, if you want to open source something, it's good if they find bugs, because the opposite is you don't open source that and no one find that bug. That's worse, right? Or when you ask colleagues, okay, let's have things. Oh, I'll go home later. Yes, let me finish this, and that person is doing out of hours quite often, especially before when we were working in the office. But now people working at home, sometimes they keep connected and working because they want to finish things, right? All of that, in some cases, not always, it might be imposter syndrome. And it's imposter syndrome generates what I call, or I like to call, the 4 horsemen of imposter syndrome. Yes, there is a lot of expert on psychology, a lot of expert on imposter syndrome, or different ways of saying. For me, that encapsulates in a way what I feel with imposter syndrome, and I think it's important. And the 4 horsemen for me are self-doubt, perfectionism, anxiety, and the fear of failure. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of them. Self-doubt, it's when you feel that you will never know enough. And that's the reason you feel that you're a fraud, because you think that you don't know enough. You are, in some cases, seeking out trainings or certifications to improve or succeed, but not really to learn. It's only because if I have those 10 certifications that probably they're not needed, maybe people won't find out that I'm a fraud. So I need to have those certifications. And don't get me wrong, there are some certifications that are really useful to have. You learn a lot, and if you are getting a lot of certifications because your main interest is to learn from the certifications, just do it. But sometimes it's when your feeling is just doing a lot of training and certifications, because like that, no one can say that you're not good at that. It might be a little bit of self-doubt, right? Sometimes when you are on the role for some time, but you feel that you don't know enough and that you don't know how you are a senior developer or senior security expert when you feel that you don't know enough. And when you're a speaker and it's several years giving talk and you say, I don't know why they're still accepting my talks because I'm not good enough. So the self-doubting, right? And sometimes they feel impressed to work harder and longer to prove your worth. So when I was in France, I was working harder and longer to prove that I was there because I was good, not because I had a sister there. And the same when I moved to UK, I was working harder to prove that it was my place, right? So all that self-doubting, I think there's an image that I always like to display. The imposter syndrome on the left is what when you suffer imposter syndrome, you think that what you know is that tiny, tiny bit, and you think that the others, they know that big. The reality is the knowledge of all of us, they complement each other. So there are some things that all of us know and some things that you only know. And sometimes there are things that you only know because you experience your life. And that's the reason you know them. And it's good to share with others. I also like this image because it reminds me that on the left of the Death Star of Star Wars. And I say, that's not good. So keep in mind, the others might be thinking the same. The other team members, the other conference speakers, they might be feeling the same. Perfectionism is when you feel your work must be 100% perfect 100% of the time. And if it's not, you don't feel okay. So you set really high goals for yourself and knowing that they are nearly impossible. And when you don't reach them, because they are nearly impossible, you have major self-doubt. Also, especially when you get promoted to team lead, as you want the whole job for the team to be perfect, you have difficulty delegating because you're not sure whether it could be perfect or not. So you keep working more hours and doing it more and more to try to be perfect, right? And the success is not satisfying you because you think I could have done better. So when you're a conference speaker, sometimes even people are saying, oh, the talk was amazing, it was really good, thank you very much, but you feel it wasn't that great because I know I could have done it better. I could have said in a different way there and a different way there, or I forgot to say something that is important, but they don't know. For them, it was really, really good talk, but for you, you don't feel right because you know I could have done better. Then the perfectionism is what it gets the binary thinking of imposter syndrome. Binary thinking of imposter syndrome is when you feel this is perfect or bad. So you don't see in the middle. For you, if something is not perfect, it's bad. And that's really, really a problem. Perfection is the enemy of great. When you are so striving for perfection that if it's not perfect, you are not happy, and you think that is bad, you are missing the point that it might be great. So doing a great job is good. Doing great talk is good. It doesn't have to be perfect. So from a conference speaker perspective, you don't have to target 100% of the audience that they are going to love your talk. I don't know, maybe Scott Hanselman is able to do that. But for me, if some people are thinking that the talk is great, it's enough now. And now I know it because I know that there is one thing that is called imposter syndrome. So keep this phrase in mind all the time. Perfection is the enemy of great. Great things are great. The fear of failure, another of the horsemen. And sometimes when you ask for help, you're revealing that you're playing everyone. So you don't ask for help or you're really, really afraid of asking for help and you do it really, really late when you're developing, right? And you should have probably asked before. Or applying for a job. That happened quite a lot. There are some people that they don't apply for a job unless they meet every single requirement, especially when there are bullet points, because they say, well, they're looking for someone with these 10 bullet points and I can fulfill only 8, so I'm not going to apply. the reality is, if you can fulfill 8 of those 10 bullet points, probably you are on the top candidates. And when you are going to be on that role after some time, you would be able to fill all the 10 bullet points. So just apply. Don't get yourself saying, I'm going to fail, I'm not going to apply for that interview. Or for a conference speaker perspective, I'm not going to submit my talk to that conference because it's not completely matching exactly what they want. It's, yeah, a little bit, but not too much. So I'm not going to send the talk. See, I didn't do that clearly on the conference about security, submitting that talk. And that's a good thing because I'm here now, right? So it's the same for the jobs. And the fear of failure also is when you fail, because you might fail, that's normal thing in life, that we can fail. Your confidence goes really, really low. And you feel ashamed of thinking that, oh, I was thinking that it could be possible and things like that. So it happened to me. I said no to a job offer when I was in France to move to Sweden. And I feel really, really depressed after that for thinking that I could do that job. And the reality is, I was the one refusing that job. But I was suffering of imposter syndrome that bad that I didn't realize. And I feel really, really bad because I wasn't able to do that job. But the reality is, it wasn't the right job, the right moment, the right contract, and it was me saying no. The self-doubt, perfectionism, and failure can lead to something really serious, that is anxiety. I'm not an expert on psychology. I cannot tell people what to do if you suffer anxiety or not, because it might be wrong in some cases. So I'm going to explain how I deal myself with anxiety and the things that work with me, or how do I fight imposter syndrome in general. But if you feel that you have anxiety and you recognize that, seek professional help. Don't use only a conference talk to deal with it, because it's really important. But some symptoms that you might start feeling anxious or about having anxiety is when you start isolating from others. So reducing your social life, you're working more hours and you're having trouble sleeping. And if you check the four, they retrofit each other, right? Because when you are isolating from others, you are going to have trouble sleeping. And also, if you're working more hours, you're going to have trouble sleeping because you're working more hours and you're isolating from others. So it's reducing your social life. And all of that is going to provoke anxiety and all the feeling of the self-doubt, fear of failure, and perfectionism. So it's really serious. So how do I fight it, right? What are the small things that I do to try to survive that imposter syndrome? Remember at the beginning that I was stressing when a conference speaker told me the fact that he submitted the talk exactly like I did, and not about what I was feeling at that moment. That was a fact. It was really important for me to keep in check. So when you're self-doubting about yourself, or you're feeling a little bit like maybe you are the front, it's always good to do the list of facts about the things that you are accomplishing. So whether you are delivering something or set up all the security protocols, the list of facts depending on your context, and you can do another versus feelings. And you realize that the feelings, every person can have that different, but the facts, when you explain the facts, they are the same for every person. So for a conference speaker, that the fact for every person is that I did submit the talk like everybody else, and it got selected by the program committee, that they have a lot of experience. The feeling that I might feel that I don't belong there, or other speaker that they feel that they do belong there, it's irrelevant because the fact is the same for. With the job offer that I have in UK, for example, I was really, really stressed and astonished that they offered me a lot of money, that I didn't check all the facts. And the facts actually is, my first job was really, really underpaid. And the budget for that role, it was that whole amount. So they gave me the whole budget because they just wanted to cover that role with the person that they think, or they thought that it was the right one. And I was in that company nearly 3 years. So it wasn't that I was tricking them. It's probably that my previous salary was really that low that I was underpaid. Save any positive feedback and check it from time to time. So what I do sometimes when I have really nice messages on some Slack channels or Twitter about the conference, I take a small screenshot and I save it on my computer. And I check it in the future because it helps. Well, as a conference speaker, it helps a lot to see if one of my talks, someone say positive comment or it made a change to one person, then that talk is worth. On the day-to-day job on IT, save also the positive feedback and check it later to realize all the good things that you did in the past, because we tend to forget all the positive and we tend to focus on the negative. But if you save it and you check it from time to time, you can keep yourself in check. Stop comparing yourself with other team members. They are different person and so on. You might think that maybe your life is boring, but it's not boring for others. You are thinking your life is boring because you were always there, living your life. But for others, it might be interesting. You might have a lot of experience to share. So something to share on a conference talk, or with your team members, something to share, knowledge to share. So don't compare to others. So I should stop comparing myself with Scott Hanselman because I'm not him and I will never be him. And that's right. Have someone to talk to. And the key thing on this is it doesn't have to be a good friend. It can be different people. For me, when I was in Greece, it was a French speaker I never know. That person helped me to put the facts and feelings. When you have a friend that person knows about impostor syndrome, that person can help with doing the list of facts. When you want to do a personal project or something that is going to be for a long time, or you want to create a new talk, it's good to actually to avoid the procrastination and doing at the very last minute and have the feeling that it wasn't good because you did it at the last minute. Set yourself small goals and small deadlines so you do step by step. So when I create a new talk, now I do a lot of dry runs with colleagues in the office or Zoom now. So I have the deadlines that I need to present these in a couple of weeks, a different version and so on. So it helps me to keep the focus and not to be worried too much on it's not going to be perfect, so why I should do it and wait till the day before the conference. It's the same when you're doing personal projects. One important thing is be kind to yourself. When you are seeing others or evaluating others, we usually are really kind with others. We're checking the good things of others more than the negatives, but we tend to forget about ourselves, all the good things. So be kind to yourself. And if you are feeling too stressed and things like that you cannot cope, what it helps me is to walk a little bit, or sometimes with music that I don't hear anybody. It helps me when I'm going to give some conferences. So I'm walking a little bit and putting some music and relaxing. On my day-to-day job, if I'm stressed, walking a little bit, even if it's just 15 minutes, it helps a lot. So before pandemic, I was always buying my lunch at lunchtime instead of bringing from home, because that was forcing me to go out and get fresh air. So that helped me a lot. You have to remember, you are your worst critic. You deserve your success. Everything good that is happening to you is a combination of your hard work, your education, your learning, knowledge, and all of that applied together. And that's the reason you deserve it, because all of that combination. And now that you know what imposter syndrome, it's a little bit like a poison sometimes. So you know that it happened, and sometimes it might get you too focused on the task, but now you know it, so you can try to understand when you're suffering that, to focus on the task, but not getting obsessed. So a little bit can help you realizing of the imposter syndrome and dealing with it and be better, right? But if it's a lot, anxiety comes. And that's the last slide, because I always want to finish with ObiWan Kenobi, when he said, in my experience, there is no such thing as luck. So again, what is happening to you is not luck, like I was thinking before, that I was the lucky boy in the lucky place at the lucky moment. It's only because I work hard for that, and it's happening for you. It's not for luck. It's because you are working hard. Thank you very much.